So I have no before video to show you what was up here, but it is just pretty basic builder's grade type of tile on this backsplash that was all the way around. So obviously if you look all around here, up under the cabinets, it goes all the way to the refrigerator. So as far as backsplashes go, this is a little bit larger than normal. Usually you have an L shaped over here and then maybe a length up to about here, 8-10 feet or so. This is a little bit longer than that. All said and done, it's quite a bit of work for the type of tile I'm going to be setting here, which is this mosaic. This mosaic actually has some glass in it. It's peppered with some other natural stone here, but it does have some glass in it. So it'll look nice. All these outlets that are currently here, the screws will be taken out and those will be just pulled out and free floating, because when I finally put the wallboard up and tile around it, I want to tile right below there. In case you didn't know, these little tabs on the bottom here are there for a reason. They hold the outlet in there when you screw it all the way in. Those tabs rest up against the bottom of this box, and in this case they're going to rest up against the bottom of the tile. So that's where the tile is going to go, right there. And it's important that these outlets be pulled out so that I can tile all the way around the box. Times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5, times 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9 of these that I have to tile around. That's where it gets intricate. You know, if it were just a normal type of backsplash with a couple outlets and a switch or so, a little easier. And then over in the corner we have a couple too. I was actually told to get rid of this. It's a phone line which is not being used anymore, and so I will get rid of that before I put the wallboard up. So getting on to the wallboard process, this is a backsplash, and people, it's kind of a misnomer when you say backsplash. You're assuming that you're going to be over here on the stove cooking and splashing stuff up on the backsplash, and over in the sink area you're going to be splashing stuff on the backsplash. But honestly, that never really happens, and even if it does, it's minuscule. This countertop already comes with its built-in backsplash, and so the minuscule area that you might be getting wet is only, 4 inches up. You're not going to be getting wet, and unless you're having a wild party or something like that over there. So it's not really a backsplash per se, and the reason that I'm leading up to that is a lot of people get fixated on Durock, Hardybacker, Wonderboard, all the other materials that are out there to use as a backer board for your backsplash. It does not hurt, but it does not help. The sheetrock that was here before, obviously it was sheetrock, worked just fine. There were never any issues with it. The tile stuck to it. Life went on. This house is, what, 30 years old, so there was never any problem with the backer board that was used. I prefer green board as opposed to just normal sheetrock, just because it has mold and mildew resistant qualities built into it. So this whole area will be put in with green board. I'll put in contiguous sheets of green board along here and then along here, and it will get married into this old sheetrock over here, and I will tape and mud this area, and anywhere that the sheetrock meets the sheetrock will get taped and mudded and dried. Once that process is done, I can start my tiling. As a rule, I start tiling anyway where it is seen the most, which would be on the end here. So my tile would start here typically and work its way around all the way down to the corner. Once it gets to the corner, there's going to be coffee makers and blenders and all kinds of stuff shoved up in the corner, so you're not going to see those cuts. If there's any cuts at all, they will be in the corner. And then same with this end. Start down here, since this is the most visible, and I work my way to the corner. Again, a bunch of stuff in this corner, no big deal. And then of course I start from that corner, work my way down to the same corner down here, so that both of my cuts come into a corner. And it wouldn't really matter if they came into the corner down there or down there. It's just a good place to end your tile, so that even if you have small cuts, they're not going to be seen as much, as opposed to starting there. If I started there, work my way around here, I might end up having the small cuts. So that's the way I do it. On this particular tile, the customer didn't really have an idea on how to end the tile or begin it, as it were. on the edge here. Sometimes you can use a pencil, sometimes you can use some Schluter strips or whatever to kind of start the tile process with, or end it as it were. And what I normally do, since this tile is always set horizontally like this, if I'm not given any direction, then I take, say, 3 rows of this tile, cut it off of the back of the mat because it is on a mat, cut it off the back of the mat, and I do it vertically like this, and then I just do all these little fill-in pieces. So it frames it out a little bit, and you will see that process as I get into the tile part. But so there will be 3 rows going down this side here, and then all the tile will continue on, and there'll be 3 rows going down the side over here, and all the tile will continue on. So backsplashes as a rule are relatively easy. There's not a lot of complications that arise with regard to this. The only thing is, this is 1/8 inch spacing. 1/8 inch spacing cries out for sanded grout. But the big no-no is to use sanded grout on glass, because potentially, as you're grouting and you're floating and all that stuff and cleanup, the little particles of sand will scratch the surface of the glass. So I did get sanded grout for this because, as I said, some of these lines are bigger than 1/8 of an inch. And I just want to make sure that the grout adheres well and all that stuff. But more than likely I will swap that out and get some non-sanded grout that will be DeLorean gray, so it'll match in pretty close to this color here. And this is a beginning phase, putting the wallboard up. I may or may not show, it's not a big deal. Once the wallboard is up and taped and mudded and all that stuff and dried, then I can get started, and I will begin. So now all the prep is done. Basically, all I've done is I put on the new wallboard, cut the holes out as you just saw for the outlets and switches, and then I taped and mudded all the areas that needed it. Normally I would put mastic. This type of tile would be fine just using mastic on the wall. As I said before, it's not really backsplash per se. No water is going to be getting on it, so I'm not concerned about that. The issue I'm having is that a lot of this area, these walls aren't straight. So little thicker areas right here, even though the board is straight and up against all the studs the way it should be, and all these boxes are flush, the wall isn't straight, and that's why I took up some of the mud on there to kind of bump it out a little bit, in addition to down here in this corner. So I'm not going to be using mastic. I have changed my mind. I'm going to use thin set, and I'm going to trowel it out relatively thin, but I can manipulate thin set a lot better than I can with mastic. So that's what I'll be doing, and get started on setting all this tile.
There was rain. Let there be rain, and there was rain. On me, everything. Let there be rain, and there was rain. Let there be rain. And there was rain. let there be you. Let there be rain, and there was rain. 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 Me everything. Let the let the let there be rain, and there was rain. 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 You are the meaning of everything. Let there be you.
So doing a backsplash is relatively easy. There's a couple of things you have to adhere to. One of them is that you keep those holes for the screws, for the tabs, these tabs right here, press up against your finished wall. So every outlet and every switch has tabs on them. So you have to get the tile as close to those holes as possible without covering them. And I have done so on every single one of these. This one was actually a little bit of a cutout. So I cut out that top piece, but I still wanted something to grip the tab, you know, or to hold the tab up when the outlet is pushed back in. And same as here, it's very, very close. Same as here, see the holes? They are exposed, but there's still enough bite for this tab to rest up against it. So as long as you adhere to that, the rest of it is relatively easy. Again, there's another cutout here that I did on the bottom piece of tile, and of course there's enough bite on these two. And that's really the main thing. Cutting these little glass tile is a little difficult. But other than that, you kind of saw the process. It's not really too difficult. The corners here, I would have rather had a piece of trim or something. Had they picked a rope or something on the side here, I probably would have put it on the corner here, so I didn't have to do all these little tiny cuts. These tiny cuts have the factory edge on the outside, so it'll still look nice after it's grouted. And tomorrow will be the grout day. So after your tile dries, you need to come in and scrape off all the excess thin set or mastic, whichever you prefer. And so you use a little scraper like this and get in between all those lines and clean out those lines before you start grouting. I didn't go through the process of setting this tile very much. There is another video I did a few years ago. I will link that right there. That video will show the process of setting the tile, because it's a little redundant for me to keep on doing backsplashes. Backsplashes are relatively easy. There's a couple of things to keep in mind. The main one is which adhesive you're going to use. In this case, I was going to use mastic, but I realized that the tile was relatively thick, and also because I had some areas here where the wall kind of bowed in, that's why I chose to use thin set instead of mastic, but either one would have worked. So once you choose your adhesive, then the next thing to remember is starting your tile consistently from one end to the other, as I mentioned already. Full tile, bring the full tile all the way around down into the corners where they're not seen so much with the cuts, although with this tile it doesn't really matter because there's cuts everywhere. But that's how I do it, and then full tile come all the way down this way until you get to the end, which all your little cuts are down there, and then vice versa, full tile down here to here. But again, with this tile, it's kind of irrelevant because there are so many little pieces of cuts anyway. So that's the main thing, is check your adhesive, make sure your adhesive is correct for the tile, make sure that you are consistent as far as where you start your tile, and then, as I've already mentioned, make sure that you keep these holes
for your outlets and switches free, but also have enough bite on there for these tabs.
That's the third thing to remember. And then the fourth thing is going to be the grouting. So that's all the setting part. The grouting, this is basically, I'm going to be using a DeLorean gray grout on here. And the DeLorean gray grout is non-sanded or unsanded, if you will. You cannot use, there's too much glass in here to use sanded grout. So originally I was going to use sanded grout because these are, a lot of them are 1/8 inch lines. And my experience with 1/8 inch lines is that sanded grout gives a better bond. But I'm precluded from doing that because of all the glass. You don't want to scratch all the glass, so that's why I'm using non-sanded grout. You want a relatively nice sponge, you know, relatively new sponge that hasn't been used with sanded grout before, because you don't want those particles in it. You want a nice sturdy float, a rubber float. Then a couple of these blades that I use to mix up the grout, and then I use a smaller blade to get it up into the tight spots. So you're going to use all that stuff, plus a clean bucket of water. And finally, most grout calls for mixing it with water, but my experience is, especially with non-sanded grout, that if you have larger lines, then that non-sanded grout tends to crack where the lines are at over time. There's not enough strength in the grout. So I use a grout additive. This I got at Floor and Decor, Home Depot, Lowe's, everybody sells some type of grout additive. So as you can see, this is specifically designed for unsanded grout, and it's just a grout additive. So I normally use a grout additive anyway, regardless if it's sanded or non-sanded. I just feel better about it as far as, you know, the strength of the grout goes, but especially with this non-sanded grout with the larger lines that are going to be in here. So that's very important. Use this. Don't use water in here. And even if you choose to use water and not use this, make sure that your grout isn't really runny. You know, you break down the adhesion qualities when it's runny. And I just prefer this little trough that I use because it's enough grout that I can probably get most of this area done with one of these trays, and then I'll fill it back up and do the rest of it. And that's basically it. So the grouting process I'm not going to show. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just get it in deep into all these lines and then wipe it off. Again, the video that I already referenced, I will put it up here again. I believe I show the process of grouting, and I might do a little bit of that on here, you know, just for those who want to see that.